Okay, I'm here with Keith Hackett, a former football referee. Keith, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Brilliant. For those of you who don't know, like I just said, Keith is a former football referee, and he actually took charge of the 100th FA Cup final in Manchester City and Tottenham in 1981, and also officiated the 1986 League Cup final between Oxford United and QPR. The two very high-profile games you've had in your career there, Keith. Keith, you now operate referee workshops all over the world and regularly write articles for publications, and you're here with us today to talk about VAR.
Yeah, I mean, it's a contentious subject. Obviously, anybody in England that watches the Premier League has almost wanted to throw a shoe at the television screen when the thing's been operated. Look, part of my career was also persuading the Premier League and the FA to create a cadre of professional referees. So I was in at ground level in terms of PGMOL, and then went on to become the PGMOL general manager for a number of years. In that period of time, I want to set the scene in that I am very much pro the use of technology to bring some balance into the accuracy of refereeing decision making. And to support that, I introduced communication kits, which are now used as standard across the world. Was heavily involved in goal line technology. I was the guy that stood up and said, "This is what I want," and then worked closely at it. That background, if you like, produces a lot of information in relation to my involvement with technology and how we bring it to football and how we deliver it accurately.
Yeah. So just starting off, as a former referee, where would you say you believe VAR can be improved upon, if you believe it can be improved upon in any way?
Well, at the moment, it's a disaster. I think that the technology itself, there's nothing wrong, apart from, let me first of all clarify that I do not like the lines being used on the offside decisions. The basis of that is that I want to do a comparison. On goal line technology, we use 7 cameras around each goal, and they're operating at 500 frames per second in order to give a high 90% rated accuracy of decision making without any human being involvement. When we go to how offsides have been operated in England, we're using the lines and we're using cameras based on 50 frames per second, which are frankly not accurate enough to cascade down to a decision that gives a toe offside or not offside. So from that point of view, when I say technology is okay, I think it is in relation to generally across VAR, but how we in England are operating the offside lines, it is not. The compensation that the Dutch referees have done is to actually widen and broaden the lines used on offside. And on those close calls, they obviously come together and the doubt then goes to the forward. So an offside decision is not called. In the MLS, operating under Greg Barkey, the overall guy in charge is Howard Webb, former Premier League referee and a colleague of mine. They do not use the lines on offside. So for me, the first line of involvement is two-pronged. One, do away with the offside lines, and 2, get technology, if you're going to use it on lines, that is more accurate, and that is something that could be developed.
Would you say that, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
do go on.
So there's that aspect of it. The second point is fans' involvement. If you're in a ground, you see something on a screen that's a message that says VAR is checking a penalty kick or a mistaken identity or offside, and that's it. If you're watching at home on television, you have a little bit more information because they, in that gap of not showing anything in the stadium, we at home front of television can see the replays. So at least we can have another look. The fan does not. And then, of course, the decision's made. So how can we improve that bit of it? It's that simple. Let us take rugby union as the example, where the big screen in the stadium is used, the film and the incident is shown on the screen. The spectators can listen in to what the referee is seeing and saying. And as a consequence of that, I think the selling of the decision and the authority of the referee is not impaired. Whereas in England, what we do is we, first of all, need to look at how we introduced it. The Premier League is the leading league in the world. Every Premier League game is covered by a minimum of 22 cameras. The process of a referee is to see, recognise, think, and act. And sadly, the honesty of it is that there are times when the referee may have players in front of him, may not be in the right viewing angle, the incident is covered, he cannot see. So therefore, you're not going to get a decision of any degree of accuracy. And the referee is not advised to guess. So you might see something on television that he doesn't have visible to it. So the idea of VAR and why I support it is the fact that that view that is being missed, that viewing angle that's been missed, that incident that's been missed, can in fact, if it is in line with the VAR protocol, and it is deemed a clear and obvious error by the referee, can actually be reviewed. So I'm happy with that process. But then I also want to emphasize the fact that it says very clearly that the VAR comes in on only clear and obvious errors. And so in that start of the process, with 1 year, we said we didn't want it. Premier League said, no, the PGMOL, no, we're not having it. So we then automatically were 1 year behind. Then when we introduced it, the boss of the PGMOL said, we're going to use the cameras sparingly. So the cameras were in position in what is technically termed as the referee review area. And so in 380 games, the referee went to the pitch side monitor on 3 occasions only. That is not sparingly. And what happened in that period was that the authority of the referee was diminished. And we all believed that some godlike figure, another referee, a colleague at Stockley Park, can make the decision. And that's like saying to the train driver, the man with a green flag in the whistle at the back end of the train, I'm in charge, I'll put the brake on. And he stops and misses the station. So the consequence of that is that we've seen decisions being made at Stockley Park and inaccurate decisions. So why don't we operate like the MLS? The MLS say that they want the referee to own the decision. The Australian League say, actually, we're quite fine communicating, but we also want the referee to view them pitch side monitor, not only to view the incident, but to actually, whatever the outcome is, that visible presence of seeing it, replay, sells the decision. What we have is an inconsistency of the referee going to the screen or not, and therefore he's abdicating his responsibilities. Whereas I think the management of the PGMOL are at fault here by not following a very clear laid down criteria. So the changes, clear and obvious, would be reinforced as the point at which a VAR comes in. And it's clear that they only come in on clear and obvious errors, which you and I see as an error, which a spectator might see as an error, and the media see as an error.
The absolute blinders, yeah.
We don't invent them. We don't suddenly say, oh, I've not done anything for 30 minutes, I need to come in and go hunting for decisions.
We saw it in the Manchester United Tottenham game, didn't we, with McTominay's flick at Heung-min Son? That's not a clear and obvious error. That's just a game happening. It's a physical game.
Well, we've seen it this weekend with West Ham United.
Exactly, yeah. Balbuena.
Yeah, I mean, he is clearing the ball. The referee's not awarded a free kick, by the way. He's clearing the ball, and the defending player comes onto him. It's an attacker, but he's defending the ball, and he comes onto him. There's no challenge. And of course, then what happens is we get the referee called to the monitor. And the relationship between the VAR operator and the referee is not a good one. Let me give you an example. Our number one referee, in my opinion, at the moment is Michael Oliver. He could well have Simon Hooper, who's a less experienced referee, or Darren England, who came on this season, as his VAR. And I contend that whilst England is a good match official, don't get me wrong, I have doubts about Hooper, there is a situation where he might be reluctant to come in, or the reverse. Oliver is the VAR, and he wants to come in to help the referee. So that relationship is not right. So for me, we've got two things here. I think to improve that is VARs are independent. They might be former referees, but they're independent. They're not active referees, and they're trained. You know, we have assistant referees that are specialists in their field. That's what they do. We have referees, they're specialists in the field. That's what they do. That's what I want with VAR. I want VARs to be specialists. So the scenario there is that then what we've got to do is we've got to say to the referees, you are using VAR as a safety net, and I am not going to allow you to become lazy referees. And I liken this because this is a story that Nigel Owens, the great Welsh international rugby referee, probably the greatest match official in any sport. What he says is, he likens VAR or TMO very similar to a tightrope walker. And if you imagine a tightrope walker, he's on that line, he might have got a pole to keep his balance. He knows if he takes the wrong step, he falls off. If he loses his balance, he falls off. There's no safety net. It's life and death, and at the end of the day, his concentration is great, his focus is great, and he gets to the other side. If you introduce a safety net to that tightrope walker, he becomes slightly lazy. It doesn't matter if he falls off. His concentration has declined. His awareness has declined. I fall off, it doesn't matter. And this is what we've got currently with referees. We've got referees who are, I think, going to the screen. And if I take Chris Kavanagh, who's a competent referee, and his colleague Peter Banks, who's relatively new on the list, and also quite a reasonable referee. Now, this referee's seen the incident, he's not awarded anything. The West Ham player's not going at that stage. Then all of a sudden VAR comes in and says, you need to have a look. And for me, because of a lack of training, that referee's already made his mind up. He's already capitulated to the man at Stockley Park by saying he must have got a better view. He's, you know, hey, just a minute, I can shift the blame. And so he goes to the screen, that walk of shame that he sees, that shouldn't be, but that's how I think psychologically he sees it, and capitulates. Now, the fault line in that process also was that if you see a decision in whatever sport at slow motion, contact sport, then it gives you a completely different picture. So if you look at, if somebody gives me a freeze frame of that West Ham incident, I'm saying, oh, cracky. I can visualize, I'm making pictures of what he's done without actually looking at what actually happened. And what happened is very different to what you see in slow motion. And a freeze frame that television come up with the foot in the thigh area of the player. And you've got to understand that television is two-dimensional. So I can have a gap of several feet, but if you're looking flat on, it looks as though they're together. And so those things have to be taken into account. So long-winded, get rid of the offside lines, let the assistant VAR operator in the studio have another look and make the call. The IFAB, the International Football Association Board, responsible for the laws of the game, change the law. If you're going to have technology, change the law to accommodate the technology to get you out the hole that you're currently in England. VAR panel, and then I would work towards all the grounds having big screens and the communication of VAR being able to be listened into. Now, you can't have that currently, but then, look, when I took over the PGMOL, we didn't have referees sponsored. So I knocked on the door of Emirates Airlines and got some cash to sponsor the referees. Like the communication kits, I brought those into referee without the permission of FIFA. I brought them in. All the heart monitors in order to ensure that our referees were given the correct training and development and their lifestyle changes. Sports science brought in full-time, training sessions changed, warm-up process then introduced in the game. Sports psychologists to try and improve the body language, to set objectives, to look at the pressures. What are the pressures on referee VAR relationship? How do we get over that difficulty that appears to exist? That when a referee goes to the monitor, they're not actually seeing it. They're not even looking. They're given the decision, fine, okay, right, and they'll come away. And VAR specialists, train them. Now, here's the point. If you're a VAR specialist, a technologist, you can be taught the laws of the game and you can, in fact, input in a more accurate manner. So I think I've gone on a bit, but in principle, you can see that I'm very passionate about the game. I'm passionate about technology. But what we've got at the moment, the analogy is we've got a car with 3 wheels and it's not working. And when it turns corner, it goes over and probably flips over. And therefore, I don't think any stakeholder in the game can be happy with the way that the Professional Game Match Officials Limited here in England, where we are the vision of football around the world in terms of a league competition. 211 territories around the world take in the Premier League games, most of them live. 2/3 of the population end up watching the Premier League games. So currently, our refereeing's in a bit of a hole.
That was an excellent answer. Really, really good. I just got one more question. I think I've just got some time to fit it in. You mentioned there about the thickness that just do away with the lines, the offside lines, and various other things. Do you think that officials such as linesmen are at risk of becoming unnecessary because VAR can make those decisions for them? I know they're on the pitch, as a second ear for the referee, but the referee seems to only listen to VAR at this point.
Yeah, I think it's quite sad because let me tell you, I think that England, despite what people might think, have got the world's best assistant referees. And we've had that for a number of years. You know, I employed a guy called Paul Rigier, who was an international assistant referee, and I made him the assistant referee manager. We've had people like Philip Sharp, Glenn Turner, Darren Cann, Mike Malarkey. Now, your listeners will not know who they are. Let me tell you, these are outstanding match officials running the line who went to the World Cup. So Philip Sharp, Dave Mike Malarkey, Darren Cann featured in the final of the World Cup. That's how good they were. So what have we done? We've taken their skill set completely away from them. So they're getting lazy. Some of them are not even running up and down the line to be in line with the secondary most defender, which is the datum point at which you make an offside call. They're not being encouraged to do that. I think on some of the big calls where they are called assistant referees, and therefore not linesmen as they were in my day, you would expect them to come in and know, but they don't. And so to answer your question, we can operate with less skilled people running the line because all they seem to be doing at the moment is ball in and out of play, which is not how I see the process. Let me tell you, there's an inherent danger in what is happening at the moment because they're delaying the flag until there's an outcome. And we will have a very serious injury at some stage with a clash between the goalkeeper and the forward. If that flag is, amazingly, players see the flag when it's raised, they'll stop or pull out. Now, I think there's that real honest risk of goalkeeper coming out and taking all with him and the forward doing the same. And then we're left with the sad situation of a Peter Cech type injury, which was almost at the point of death for that individual.
Oh, another brilliant answer. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Thank you very much.